cold hum of the refrigeration units was like a lullaby for the dead. Down here, there's no ticking clock, only the heavy breath of machinery and the weight of stillness pressing against your ribs. It's not the kind of quiet you find in a library or a church. It's heavier, thicker. It presses behind your eyes and clings to your clothes. I used to like it, that silence, that sterile peace, but not anymore. My name is Dr. Callum Ree. I'm 38, a forensic pathologist. I've worked in the county hospital morgue for 11 years. I used to joke that the dead were easier to deal with than the living. They didn't yell, they didn't lie, they didn't beg. But lately, I've stopped making that joke, because lately, drawer 19 has been opening on its own. It started about 2 months ago. I'd passed the wall of drawers doing my checks, and I'd notice it open just a crack, half an inch, just enough to see the lining of the drawer's seal. At first, I assumed it was mechanical, a faulty latch. I made a note. Facilities checked it out and said nothing was wrong. Still, I'd push it shut and keep walking. An hour later, it would be open again, never wide, just cracked, like something inside was testing the air. This time, I opened it fully. It wasn't Jane Doe inside. It was a different woman, younger, pale. Her eyes were open, staring directly at me, black, bottomless, and angry. Her mouth was sewn shut with surgical thread. Not my work, not hospital protocol. I stumbled back, nearly falling over the gurney behind me. When I looked again, she was gone. Drawer 19 was empty, clean, and dry, but a toe tag lay on the tray. It had my handwriting, my name, dated 2 weeks in the future. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say? That the drawer was haunted, that I saw my own handwriting from the future, that the dead were changing places when no one was looking. I started avoiding that side of the room, stopped logging bodies near 19, but still, every shift, I'd find it open, just a crack. I leave it empty now. No one goes in, but even when it's locked, I hear the soft slide of metal on metal, like something gently pushing from the inside, not frantic, just persistent. I don't sleep much anymore. I keep thinking about that toe tag, the handwriting, the date. I wonder what happens 2 weeks from now. I wonder if someone will find me, like I found her, calm, waterlogged, eyes open. I wonder if drawer 19 is already reserved, and if it is, who's going to close it? Rain tapped against the tiny square window above the autopsy slab, like a metronome, counting down to something no one had scheduled. To the fluorescents overhead buzz softly, flickering now and then, with that sickly green tint that always made the room feel colder than it was. It had been a long night, 2 overdoses, a fatal car crash, and the usual mountain of paperwork. When the body arrived just after 3 a.m., I didn't question it. I should have. I'm Dr. Vivian Ames, 45 years old. I've performed over 1,400 autopsies. I work for the hospital's forensic pathology department. I'm exact. I'm methodical. That's what this job demands. I've never been afraid of bodies, or what they contain, until that night. They wheeled him in without a name. Male. Late 30s. Average build. The nurse said he was found unconscious in the ER stairwell. No pulse, no ID, no witnesses. Pronounced dead by the ER attending. I filled out the intake form and prepared for the standard post-mortem, but when I checked the hospital system for his file, there was nothing. No admittance record, No death certificate, no call from EMS. It was like he'd appeared inside the building from nowhere. Curious, I checked the security feed for the ER stairwell. 6 full minutes of black screen. A glitch. The tech said, power surge. Coincidence. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The body was cold, but not the usual cold of refrigeration. It was damp. I opened the chest cavity, expecting trauma, but there were no external injuries, no signs of heart attack or overdose. But then the water started pouring out. 2 full liters of clear fluid filled the pan beneath the table. It smelled faintly of salt and mildew, like stagnant pond water. His lungs were completely dry. That made no sense. Then I saw his heart. Small, withered, hardened almost to stone. It was etched with tiny symbols, thin, precise carvings. Not in any anatomical textbook. It reminded me of something old, ritualistic, something not meant to be found inside a human body. I documented everything, labeled the jars, and stepped away to breathe. When I returned, the body was gone. Gone. Not just moved, erased. No log, no cooler tag, no paperwork trail. The tech on shift swore he never saw the man. The cameras still showed nothing. I asked around. No one remembered him coming in. No one had called it in. It was like I'd imagined him, but I didn't imagine the samples. I tested the water. No biological signature, no bacteria, just water, flat and ancient, like it had been buried under the world for centuries. I haven't told anyone what I found, not officially. I keep the heart in a private locker, unlabeled, and every night since, I've started dreaming of stairwells, endless, looping stairwells, flooded at the base with still water. Something always waits there, just out of sight, watching. The damp feeling hasn't left me. I shower 3 times a day. Still, my clothes cling to my skin, like I've been soaked from the inside out. The walls sweat, the drains whisper. Sometimes I wonder if he was ever dead at all, or if I was meant to be the one on that slab. Maybe that stairwell wasn't where he died. Maybe it's where something came through, and maybe it's still waiting for someone else to take his place. Even in death, bone resists. It snaps. It howls. It remembers the pain that once lived inside it. There's something intimate about the sound a saw makes when it cuts through a femur, less like breaking, more like pleading. The room we use for bone dissections is isolated. No windows, one door, thick walls. No one wants to hear what goes on in there. I'm Peter Navarro, 51. I've been a pathology technician for 23 years. I'm not a doctor. I don't sign forms or determine cause of death. I clean. I prepare. I sharpen the tools. I run the saw. When the work is done, I mop. It's a quiet job. You can lose yourself in it. But lately, I've been hearing things. Not the usual hum of the vent system or the buzz of flickering lights. Something else. Whimpering, faint and steady, like a child crying through the walls. The first time I heard it, I stopped mid-cleanup and stood perfectly still. It was just me in the room, or it was supposed to be. I checked the hallway, the adjoining labs. Nothing. I chalked it up to stress. Divorce does that to a man. Sleepless nights, empty apartment. But the crying kept happening. Always when I was alone, always when the saw was off. I started humming to drown it out, but it only grew louder. Then came the smell, not decay. Something sweeter, sour milk, maybe, familiar and wrong. I followed it to the corner cabinet, where we store the discarded specimens for later review. The bin was sealed. I opened it anyway. Inside were bones, long and thin, pediatric, from a case we received after a highway accident. The tags confirmed it. Transport from a burned van. No survivors, all unidentified. But the bones were fresh, wet, too fresh, like they had just been harvested, and one femur, small, delicate, had a handprint, tiny, 4 fingers and a thumb, stained into the surface, like soot. That night, I dreamed of my daughter. She was 8 when the court took her from me. I haven't seen her in 5 years. In the dream, she was sitting cross-legged on the bone saw table, swinging her legs and whispering something I couldn't hear. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth never moved, but the crying came from inside her. I started avoiding the saw room, but the requests piled up. More bones to process, more accidents, more small limbs, and fragile ribs. Each time I entered the room, I felt something behind me, watching, not threatening, just there, like a child waiting for a parent who never comes home. One afternoon, I forgot to shut off the saw. When I came back, it was off. The room was spotless. Every tool in place. The mop bucket was empty, but I hadn't cleaned yet, and the crying had stopped. That scared me more than anything. Now, before every shift, I hum to the bones. It's not a song, just a sound, a rhythm. I don't know why I do it. Maybe to keep them company, maybe to remind them someone's still listening. I never asked what happened to those children in the crash. Some things don't need to be known, but I keep that hand-printed femur hidden in my locker, wrapped in cloth. I check it every few days. The print hasn't faded. It's getting darker, and I swear, some nights, it twitches. The vault hums, like a sleeping beast. Shelves of human fragments, stacked in steel trays, all labeled, all quiet, until they're not. The lights in the tissue storage room are motion sensitive, but they flicker sometimes without anyone moving. It's colder in there than it needs to be. The kind of cold that sinks into your fingernails and makes your thoughts feel slow, sticky. I'm Sylvia Rourke, 34. I catalog biological specimens for the pathology department, slices of tissue, frozen organs, labeled and logged with neat little codes. It's not glamorous, but I don't need glamorous. I need solitude, and this room gives it to me. Most days, the first time something felt wrong was when I noticed a tray had been rearranged. Not drastically, just a few slides placed out of order. I thought maybe one of the interns got sloppy. I fixed it and moved on. The next day, it happened again. Different tray, different samples, still subtle, but I know my shelves. I don't forget numbers. After a week, I stopped blaming the interns. The misplacements started forming patterns. One afternoon, I laid the slides across my workbench just to see. They weren't random. The labels, read aloud in sequence, began to form words, crude, strange, but unmistakable. Let me out. I stared at those slides for hours. My first instinct was to believe someone was playing a sick joke. I didn't report it. I just reordered everything, cleaned the whole room, logged each tray myself. The next morning, I found a new slide on my desk, not in a tray, just sitting there. No label, no date, just a single microscope slide with my name etched into the glass. Not written, etched. as if carved with a diamond tip. The tissue on the slide was neural, thin, branching dendrites, human brain matter. I checked our logs, no matching samples. The cell patterns were strange, dense, tangled, and yet oddly familiar. Later that night, I found myself rubbing the back of my neck. There's a scar there I never thought much about. A childhood accident, I'd assumed, but I couldn't remember the incident. I couldn't remember ever being treated. I looked in the mirror, pulled my collar down. The scar was redder than I remembered, raised, irritated. I took the slide to a colleague, told him it came from an old file, asked for a second opinion. He squinted under the lens for a long time. Finally he said, "Whoever this came from, they had a memory disorder. See this density here? It's almost like the cells were trying to regrow themselves." That night I dreamed of a room I didn't recognize, but somehow knew. Metal table, white walls, voices without faces. They were taking something from me. I woke up crying. The slide is still in my desk drawer. I think about throwing it away, but I can't. I feel drawn to it. Sometimes I swear it vibrates slightly when I touch it, just enough to notice, just enough to make me hesitate. I started wearing scarves, even indoors. I avoid mirrors now, and when I catalog new tissue, I talk to it softly. I don't know why. Maybe it's comfort. Maybe it's guilt. I used to believe we were just meat and memory, that what we stored on shelves didn't feel, but I'm not so sure anymore. Some parts of us want to return, want to grow, want to be remembered, even the ones we never knew we lost. Dust settles fast in rooms, no one claims, but sometimes things move anyway, and they carry you with them. The slide prep lab is tucked behind the old operating suites. Space is no longer used, sealed with fading tape and rusted hinges. I keep it clean, sharp, quiet. That's what this job demands. No clutter, no hesitation. You slice too thick, and you miss the truth. I'm Darryl Wu, 60 years old. I was supposed to retire last year, but I never filed the papers. I wouldn't know what to do with myself out there. I've been here longer than most of the doctors. I make the tissue thin enough to see, thin enough to read. Every slide tells a story, and I've spent my life reading those stories one cell at a time. The tray appeared 3 months ago. I didn't make it, didn't log it, but it was sitting on the edge of my workbench when I arrived one Monday morning. Immaculate, labeled, sealed in glass. 5 slides, each one familiar, not in appearance, but in feeling. The first was a liver sample, a strange lesion pattern, almost like teeth. I'd seen something like that 15 years ago, a case that went unsolved. No matching conditions. I remember because the body disappeared before toxicology could finish. The second slide showed cardiac tissue, but the fibers were twisted in a spiral. It mirrored a case from 2009, a homeless man found near the power substation. His heart had literally curled in on itself. The others were the same. Cases I remembered, not because they were dramatic, but because they were incomplete. Stories without endings. Each one haunted me in its own quiet way. Each one now sat in front of me, relabeled, recut, as if someone or something had finished what I couldn't. I asked the other techs, the pathologists. No one knew where the slides came from. No one even admitted being in the lab. I checked the security logs. They skipped 3 hours that weekend. The feed was smooth, but empty. Then came the last slide. It wasn't there at first, It arrived by itself, in the same tray. A week later, no label, just a sliver of skin, stained perfectly, under pristine glass. I studied it for hours. The texture was familiar, the pigmentation, the scar tissue, and then I realized it was mine. On my left shoulder, just below the collarbone, there's a mole I've had for decades. Nothing major, but the slice under the microscope was that mole, cut cleanly, preserved, and the sample was dated 2 years into the future, signed, in my own handwriting. That night, the itching started, just beneath the skin, like something writhing inside. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. I checked the mole in the mirror, over and over. It hasn't changed. Not yet. Since then, I haven't prepared any new samples. I sit in the lab, waiting to see if more slides appear. They do, one every few days. Old cases, pieces of people I couldn't help, return to me one cell at a time. Maybe the dead are sending them, or maybe I'm finishing what I left undone. But each slide feels heavier than glass should. I haven't told anyone. I don't think they'd understand. Some stories refuse to be forgotten, and some cuts are too deep to heal. I know I'm being watched, not out of malice, but out of need. They're waiting for me to finish. I just wonder what my last slide will show.